Hey, look YouTube, and welcome back to a new video with Rams Fan YT. In today's video, I'll be going over my predictions for this upcoming week of football from the Premier League to the National League North and South. We've also got some tasty derbies, some cup encounters in the EFL Trophy, and some delayed FA Cup games as well. So, not the FA Trophy, EFL Trophy. Did I say EFL Trophy? I can't remember. Anyway, I'm going to start tonight with Manchester City versus Brentford. Man City were on full thrusts ahead on the weekend just gone by in the FA Cup, having smashed Salford 8-0. Beat Leicester in the last game in the Premier League as well, didn't they? Or some team like that. So yeah, they seem to be back. And I think Brentford may be on the receiving end of a bit of a Man City masterclass. 3-1 Manchester City. Chelsea versus AFC Bournemouth. I know Bournemouth are doing well this season, but as are Chelsea. In fact, Chelsea are doing better, and although they have got a bottle occasionally in them, I think they will win this one fairly comfortably at home. 2-1 to Chelsea. West Ham United versus Fulham in a bit of a London derby. These sort of have got, they're not the biggest clubs in London, but they're certainly teams that have got history and pedigree in the Premier League. It's going to be difficult. Bit of a mid-table clash, I suppose you could say. West Ham in 14th, Fulham in 9th. I reckon Fulham probably more likely to win this one. 2-0 to Fulham. Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool. Let's stop this nonsense about Nottingham Forest being in a title race. They are 6 points off, and they're already playing against Liverpool. Liverpool will win this one. I'm sure of it. 1-0 to Liverpool. Cardiff City versus Watford in the Championship. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw for this one. It'll be a close affair. But yeah, Cardiff to scrape a point. Plymouth Argyle versus Oxford United. Yeah, this game is this one cup delayed or is this one championship? This one's also championship. Yeah, Plymouth at home, they do well at home. That cannot be denied. Against an Oxford team, which, although all right, have had a bit of a resurgence of late, lifting them to 17th. It's a difficult place to go, Plymouth, for anyone, and they've probably just appointed their new manager, I would imagine. I could have sworn I heard that they had appointed a new manager. A guy called Munon Muslik, I'm not sure how you pronounce that name. A manager I've never actually heard of. So could work absolutely amazingly well, or could be. I think the team that Pieface supports will win this one. 1-0 to Plymouth Argyle, their home park. It's a good, strong atmosphere. There's the 3 FA Cup games which I predicted in the last video, but just quickly go over them. Derby County 3, Leyton Orient 0, Wigan Athletic 2, Mansfield Town 1, Preston North End 2, Charlton Athletic 1. On to the National League, we got Aldershot Town versus Braintree Town. Yeah, I think this is definitely a lower half, maybe even a relegation scrap in the National League. Some would potentially say that Aldershot could get dragged into it. They are only 2 points above it and have had a bit of a poor run of form. So yeah, 18th versus 20th. I think Aldershot at home will win this one. 1-0 to the Shots. Aldrincham versus Maidenhead United. Maidenhead have started to pick up for a few points every now and again, and they're only on goal difference now outside from being into the reaches of safety. And they are up against Aldrincham, which is a very mid-table team themselves. So this game could really go anyway. I'm going Maidenhead to win this one. 3-1 to the Magpies. Ebbsfleet United versus Yeovil Town. I think we can all agree that Ebbsfleet will definitely be relegated this season. Whether Yeovil reach playoffs or not is another question. They are in ninth, 3 points off the playoffs. But Rochdale have got such a vastly improved goal difference that they definitely won't be able to make it in from these fixtures. Yeovil will win this one though, 3-1. Fairly comfortable win for the Glovers. Forest Green Rovers versus Barnet in a potentially title decider. The second, the third. Forest Green Rovers outside the title of and automatic promotion by 5 goals in goal difference terms. 1 point for Barnet and a healthy spare goal difference as well. We're going to go with a 2-2 draw here. I can see them cancelling out. That will probably be the best result in York fans' opinions. They'll be desperately wanting both of these teams to cancel each other out. Gateshead versus SC Halifax Town. I know Gateshead are doing well in 4th. I think there's just slightly too much of a gap between them and everyone else to be able to get into that automatic spot. Up against Halifax, which is 3 points outside the playoffs, and I do think the Shaman may win this one 2-0 to FC Halifax Town. It'll be interesting to see if they can manage to sneak into the playoffs, although at the moment I see the top 7 being fairly solid in the National League. Solihull Moors versus Eastleigh. Solihull in 6th versus Eastleigh in 12th. Eastleigh have had a decent run of form, actually. A fair few draws in an unbeaten run that is spanning a fair few games now. And I think they'll probably get another draw here. A 1-1 draw between Solihull and Eastleigh. Into the EFL Trophy we go. Everyone's favourite competition. We've got Cheltenham Town versus Colchester United. Cheltenham got relegated last season, but they seem to be a bit mid-table in League One League Two this time round. Colchester in the same boat. I think home advantage will win this one at Wadden Road. 1-0 to Cheltenham Town. Can't see much between these two teams, and both will want a very good trophy run to look back on as something which happened this season, you know. Chesterfield versus Rotherham United. I think Chesterfield have done well back in this competition from the first time in a while. Strong competition in Rotherham, bit of a local rivalry, I imagine. Ain't much between them other than the big as city of Sheffield. I reckon they'll cancel each other out in this game. A 1-1 draw, and that means it'll go straight to a penalty shootout. And for that, I think Chesterfield will win it on penalties. Got to back the Derbyshire lads going all the way. I would imagine we would love to see Chesterfield in the final. I think we would. Lincoln City versus Bolton Wanderers. Bolton Wanderers, because they're not doing amazingly well in the league compared to what they were last season, they'll be wanting to win some silverware. So a 1-0 win to Bolton Wanderers here at Sincil Bank. Get some silverware into the club. The last under-21s team, I believe, is Aston Villa's under-21s against Bradford City. And they, for the first time for an under-21s team, will all be home. And they're at Villa Park, which is going to be a huge event. Well, a huge stadium. I don't know about a huge turnout, but I think Aston Villa's under-21 can do it again. 2-1 to Villa, the Villa's Academy. Could we see an Aston Villa under-21s versus Birmingham City EFL Trophy final? Birmingham City are still in it, and they are up against Swindon Town. Swindon Town struggling in League Two, and they will probably be looking at this game as a bit of a free hit. Birmingham City, likewise, in a title race in League One, will also probably be looking at it as a free hit. They can't rotate the squad fully because if you remember EFL Trophy rules, they have to have a certain amount of players who played in the last matchday squad. So 4-1 to Birmingham City here. I think fairly dominant control by the Blues. Peterborough United versus Walsall. Now, Walsall looks so unbeatable in League Two, but they are against League One opposition in Peterborough. I think they'll cancel each other out. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw, which will take it to a penalty shootout, and I do think Peterborough will win on penalties. In the National League North, we've got Alfreton Town versus Brackley Town in what could ultimately decide whether Alfreton reach the National League North playoffs or not. They've been a bit off the boil of late, Alfreton. They've lost the last 2 games. They are still only 2 points outside of the playoffs, so a win here today could completely change the fortunes. But against Brackley, quite difficult. 5th place Brackley. Yeah, I'm seeing this as a very uphill battle for Alfreton, even though we're at home. 1-0 to Brackley Town. Chorley versus Peterborough Sports. Chorley are in 9th. They are a team which is a staple pretty much in the playoffs in the National League North. So seeing them outside of it is a bit of an upset if you go off recent seasons. They're at home, though, versus Peterborough Sports. Peterborough Sports mid-table, about probably where people would expect, maybe a bit lower than 14th, but hey-ho. 2-0 to Chorley, get themselves back into that playoff fight, really. Leamington versus Chester. Chester in 6th, one of them teams which are already in the playoff zones. Against Leamington, who are in 17th. Leamington aren't on the greatest run of form, but I reckon it'll be a draw here at home. We're going to have a 0-0 draw, which will probably please the Leamington fans more than the Chester ones, but certainly to manage to be mid-table coming into the season, I think Leamington will probably take that in the third season back in the National League North. On to Scarborough Athletic versus Kidderminster Harriers at the Flamingo World Stadium. Kidderminster Harriers lost their last game in a bit of a shock after having that 4 games winning streak. They're still only 2 points off the title. It is a wide open title race. Let's not discount anyone yet. But at Scarborough Athletics ground, and Scarborough do seem to be the bogey team at Kidderminster, and I think it could be again 4-2 to Scarborough Athletic, which will put them in a good position to be a solid mid-table end to the season, and a huge scalp against one of the larger clubs in the National League North. In the National League South, we've got Tunbridge Angels versus Eastbourne Borough. Now, Eastbourne Borough are in the playoffs in 6th. They have had a really good unbeaten run. But against Tunbridge Angels, who are 4 points outside of playoffs themselves, they'll view this as a huge chance to potentially get into touching distance of the playoffs on that very cusp. I think they'll win it at home here. Tunbridge Angels 2, Eastbourne Borough 0. Yeah, I think Tunbridge, if anyone, will be the team at the moment who may just manage to sneak in and dislodge the Worthing team, who are so good at the moment. Welling United versus Hampton and Richmond Borough. Hampton Richmond Borough in 13th, having had 4 draws in the last 5 games. Welling United down in 19th. They'll probably not get relegated. There seems to be such a gap between the bottom 4 at the moment and everyone else. But Welling United at home, I think they'll be wanting to win this one. Cross London derby, although they're completely opposite ends of London. There'll be probably quite a fair few bit of away support, even though it's midweeker. 2-1 to Welling United, to the Wings. Giving them that breathing space. You don't want to end up, even though they're still 9 points clear, you don't want to end up keep on losing games. No fan wants to see that. Everton versus Aston Villa in the Premier League. Everton under new management. Yeah, I think it was a bit harsh, the sacking of Sean Dyche. I feel like he would have been a great man to keep him up. They have instead opted for David Moyes, a return for Moyes to the Merseyside outfit. I think Moyes, good managerial appointment. He'll get a job done. They may even be able to, in a few seasons' time, reach the Conference League. If they put the faith in a manager up against a team who is already sky-flying in the Champions League. Yeah, Everton versus Villa. It's at Goodison, so I'm probably going to go with a 0-0 draw here. There's been a lot of 0-0 draws of late in Everton's squad. It's sort of in their mindset, in their DNA for Everton at the moment. They're becoming next Burnley at this rate. Yeah, it takes a while to turn around a cruise line, oil tanker, isn't it? Is what the terminology is. And that's certainly the case with the new owners at Everton. Leicester City versus Crystal Palace. This is a huge game at the bottom of the table for the Premier League. 15th place versus 19th place. I do feel like Leicester need to get the win here, but I don't think they will. I think it'll be a 0-0 draw. Pretty close affair altogether. Newcastle United versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. Wolves are by 1 goal outside of the relegation zone. They're up against Newcastle, who is a team who's absolutely firing at the moment. They have won their last 6 games in League and FA Cup. I think it's hard to see Newcastle tripping up in this game. I sometimes predict it for these things, but we're at home at St James's Park. 3-0 to Newcastle, with arguably one of the best midfielders, if not the best midfield, in the Premier League. A controversial opinion maybe, but I do think it's certainly up there. I think only Arsenal and a fully fit Man City is obviously best, but they're not. So probably only Arsenal, giving them a proper run for the money at the present. Arsenal, talking about Arsenal, got Arsenal versus Tottenham, 2nd versus 12th, but unlike any other secondary 12th game, this is a North London derby, and any form that any team has had will go completely out the window. So despite the fact of Arsenal being unbeaten in such a long time, and Tottenham literally going to extra time versus, who was it? Tamworth, sorry. Slipped my mind there. But yes, extra time in Tamworth. They'll be well up for this game. And of course, Tottenham have got 1 leg into the final of the EFL Cup, as does Newcastle, which was a miss of me to saying last time. It was technically 7 games, not 5, not 6, as I said, because I forgot the EFL Cup existed. But yeah, Arsenal at the Emirates. I'm going to go 2-2 draw here. I think I don't think Arsenal have got the bottle, and neither do Tottenham, to fully take all 3 points here. And it means I'm perfectly on the fence and having it pissed off either fan base. Blackburn versus Portsmouth. You've got to say Blackburn have heavy favourites for this one at Ewood Park. Even though Portsmouth are having a little bit of a resurgence at the other end of the pitch, they are, well, they're not even that, to be fair. They're still only just outside relegation zone. I thought it's foremost taken them out of relegation, and it really isn't. It's just more teams around them being slightly worse. So yeah, fairly comfortable for Blackburn here. 3-0 to Blackburn Rovers. Yeah, fairly routine for the Lancashire-based team. Boston United versus Southend United in the National League. I actually am going to go big. I think that draw against Ebbsfleet could be the turning point in Boston's season. They'll be desperately looking for anything as a turning point at the moment to try and get some form to get themselves into that battle to actually stay in the league, because at the moment they're quite far off. 2-0 to the Pilgrims at home against a Southend team which is quite mid-table this season, so I don't think it would come as much as a shock overly. Sutton United versus Wealdstone in another cross-London derby. Wealdstone in 19th, Sutton in 13th. But unlike Boston, I do think Wealdstone will not manage to overcome in this one. Sutton at home will be wanting to take home the bragging rights of this London occasion. 4-1 for Sutton United here, pushing them into potentially a playoff battle. It's quite difficult to see them being able to do it this late on in the season with so many teams between them and the playoffs. Ipswich Town versus Brighton and Hove Albion. Now, talking about a team which is also in significant danger of going down, we're talking about Ipswich Town. I think 1 goal away from safety, and I think they potentially could see something here. They'll know the Wolverhampton Wanderers result and the Everton result by the time they are playing, because they're playing on Thursday. And so that you'd either put a lot more pressure on them or relieve it a bit. They're up against Brighton, who haven't won in a long, long time. They've drawn the last 4 games in the league. So yeah, I reckon this will be another draw to notch up onto the total here at Portman Road. 0-0 draw. I think the Tractor Boys may just take that because every point counts, and that will be 3 games without defeat, which is such a good mentality to have, even if it is only draws. Manchester United versus Southampton in another relegation battle. Okay. I'm joking, of course, Manchester United fans. Southampton down in 20th. I think serious questions will be asked to Manchester United if they do not get all 3 points here, though. And you know what? I can actually see it happening. I can see them bottling in Southampton. I'm going with a 0-0 draw at Old Trafford. Absolutely mental. I think Southampton will just sit back and soak up all the pressure. I think Manchester United have been a team in disarray, I think is fair assessment to make. And I don't think anyone is, if you actually look under the bonnet, is anyone actually surprised they're in 13th? They've been punching above their weight and on the legacy of Ferguson for quite a while now. Shrewsbury Town versus Wrexham in a local derby here. Not entirely sure why this is happening. I believe on Thursday, which for me, completely weird for a League One game to be on Thursday, but it is what it is, I suppose. Shrewsbury at home, they're in a relegation battle, in relegation zone themselves. Probably could even end up bottom of the league with Burton having a few easier fixtures of late, and Wrexham is not an easy game. Wrexham to win this one as they themselves are on a hunt for automatic promotions. 1-0 for Wrexham here, with Ryan Reynolds' men taking all 3 points back to Wales. Burnley versus Sunderland in what is a more exciting, a very exciting game. Potentially, it's got all the makings of an absolute classic. Under the floodlights on a Friday night, Burnley versus Sunderland, 2 northern industrial powerhouses, fighting it out for potentially a team to get into the automatic promotion zone. We've got Burnley on the one hand, who are known for their extremely rigid defence. You've got Sunderland, on the other hand, who have so far probably claimed the standout transfer of this January transfer window, and have also got Joe Bellingham and some other great players. 2 points separating the teams. Absolute giant clash of the Titans here, and it's gonna be a 0-0 draw. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. This does tend to happen, though, doesn't it? When they build up everything for these huge games on TV, a title decider maybe even, and it just never ends up being that exciting. Harrogate Town versus Cheltenham Town. In League 2 occasion here. Don't know why this one's on Friday. A bit odd. Cheltenham in 13th, Harrogate down in 21st. I don't see this being an overly exciting game. Is anyone actually tuning into this one unless you're a Harrogate or Cheltenham fan? I'm not sure. Cheltenham to win this one 1-0. I think Harrogate could potentially be pulled into a relegation battle if they are not careful, or maybe they're already in one. I don't know. You may actually think that 5 points clear is not clear enough to be in a relegation battle. I know Derby fans certainly do not. They're still very fearful that we are in a relegation battle. But yeah, we now got Yeovil Town versus Gateshead because of travel arrangements. They've rearranged this to being Friday, and I just think that's worse because the returning Gateshead fans will not be getting home until 4:30ish in the morning. Yeah, that's the price you pay for being a fan of a club travelling the length and breadth of the country. At Huish Park, I think Yeovil will probably win this one. It's a long way. They'll be fatigued, tired from a long trip. Yeovil to win 3-2, which I think would round off a fairly successful week for Yeovil, potentially even pushing them into the playoffs. Farsley Celtic versus Scarborough Athletic. I don't know if it's because Buxton potentially, I think, might be at home on the Saturday. So, because of a ground sharing agreement they have, it will mean that, Buxton at home. So, because of a ground sharing agreement, they have to push it back to a Friday. They're at home to Scarborough Athletic. Well, home. But I actually think they could get something here because Farsley don't want to end up in a relegation battle, even though they are firmly in one. They'll want to make sure that they don't go down because There are teams breathing down their neck in the National League North. Unlike the National League South, there is only 3 points separating Radcliffe and Farsley, and Radcliffe have got a vastly superior goal difference. Warrington also very much in danger of getting dragged down into that as well. Let's not forget. So, yeah, Farsley Celtic to win this one 2-0. Newcastle United versus AFC Bournemouth at St James's Park. Another sort of reverse, isn't it, from the Gateshead Yeovil one of Bournemouth having to unfortunately do the travelling all the way up to Newcastle. I think Bournemouth isn't going to be a rollover hot dog, you could say, for Newcastle. I know Newcastle have been flying. I've already mentioned it once in this video already, but so are Bournemouth. Bournemouth aren't defeated in a long time either. It's basically 57th as I'm recording. 2-2 draw here. I do think they'll cancel each other out in Iraola. I can never pronounce this guy's names. Iraola is a underrated manager, to say the least. Probably the most underrated in the league. Brentford v Liverpool. Liverpool, top of the league, flying, will probably get the title, we could all imagine, and easy 3 points against a mid-table Brentford. I'm sorry, Brentford, but you're going to get thrashed 4-1 to Liverpool. Leicester City versus Fulham. I think Fulham will win this one. I do think that. Up against an outer sorts Leicester team. 1-0 to Fulham. West Ham United versus Crystal Palace in another London derby, 14th versus 15th. This is actually quite an important game because if either of these teams lose, it suddenly creates a bit of gulf between them and the if someone wins this, it creates a gulf between them and the relegation zone, and if you lose it, you can get another teams around you start picking up points. You starts looking a bit more nervy. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw because there's a lot riding on this game. I don't think either team would really want to point given the circumstances, but I think it will be a fair reflection on where both teams are at the moment. Arsenal versus Aston Villa. Aston Villa have half an eye of trying to get into Europe. I'm not sure how they're planning on doing this if the EFL Cup is won by Newcastle or Spurs. Then, if it's won by Newcastle, Newcastle getting the Europa League places by sitting where they are at 5th, then that will push them down the other Europa League place down to 6th. We'll push the Conference League place into the 6th place in a moment because the Conference League is equated either whoever wins the EFL Cup or who is the highest ranked team who has not won it. If you get what I'm trying to say, I feel like I've done that in a very complicated way. Anyway, Aston Villa could get Europe. They just need to be a bit more consistent. But I think they could win here. Arsenal are far from consistent. 2-0 to Aston Villa. Yeah, we'll go with that as a shock. Cardiff City versus Swansea City. Oh, I'm going to lose some fans here. I'm already losing. I've already lost 2 subscribers since the new year. It's not going well. But yeah, Cardiff versus Swansea. Who is up for this game more is a real question. I always like home advantage for local derbies, especially with this one. I think Swansea will be becoming slightly arrogant with their high league position at the moment, and Cardiff in the relegation zone. 2-0 for Cardiff City. Millwall versus Hull City. Millwall in 14th, Hull in 22nd. I think I could feasibly see each other cancelling each other out here. A 2-2 draw. Millwall, I'm not entirely sure where the direction this club is at the moment. Hull is obviously just trying to get safety in the Championship. Their owners confuse me, but yeah. Plymouth Argyle versus QPR. Remember what I said about Plymouth being good at home? Well, I think this is also going to be the case here. Although QPR have been a decent team so far this season, they've managed to pull themselves well clear of that relegation battle, which I thought they would be in at the start of the season. 1-1 for Plymouth Argyle here, which will be 4 points in 2 days, which will be much better than whatever Wayne Rooney got. And maybe it started. It's a new manager bounce. We'll give it time, you know. Coventry City versus Bristol City. 16th versus 8th. I would say a mid-table battle, but Bristol City are only 3 points off the playoffs. There is a healthy goal difference between that, but let's not wipe out Bristol City from our questions about the playoffs at the moment. But they'll need to win here, and I don't think they will. Coventry resilient at home, 2-2 draw for Frank Lampard's men. I think they'll probably take that. My beloved Derby County, we are playing at home to Watford. We normally do better at home, but I'm just worried. It's Watford. Like, I know they've lost the last 3 games, but we're wanting to turn it around because they want to get to the playoffs. I'm going to go with a 1-0 win for Watford. And if we lose the week after, and I think they're playing at home to Sunderland, if we do lose that game, then Paul Warne, not the Watford one, the one afterwards, if we've lost the Watford one as well, Paul Warne has to go. That would be 5 straight defeats in the league. And we maybe even get knocked out of a cup on Leyton Orient and then get drawn against Manchester City would be huge for us if we manage to get through. So I'm just hoping we do. You know. Luton Town versus Preston North End. Luton are not in a very comfortable position in 20th. I don't think many people expected that coming into the start of this season. They're up against 15th based Preston. I think Preston will win this one 1-0. I'm not convinced with Luton at all at the moment. They've lost the last 4 games in a row, and they're definitely in danger of going and suffering back-to-back relegations like Sunderland did all them years ago. Well, not all them years ago, but a fair few years ago now. Oxford United versus Blackburn Rovers, another team who I think, even though they're having a good run of form at the moment, that'll come crushing down, mainly because of the calibre of opposition in Blackburn. They are a huge team. I'm going 4-2 to Blackburn Rovers here. Portsmouth versus Middlesbrough, although it's at Fratton Park, which have got some huge, great fans at Portsmouth. They're up against Middlesbrough, who, although it's long distance, I think are a incredibly great team in this league. Let's not wipe out the fact that they are in the playoffs and they are there rightfully for a reason. I think they're going to beat Portsmouth here, who, again, the table doesn't lie. They're just out of it on the relegation zone. On things goals scored is the only reason why they're out of it. 3-1 to Middlesbrough here. Sheffield United versus Norwich City. Norwich City gathering together a few strings of results of late, which means they're 4 points outside the playoffs, based in 11th. It's not the easiest game, though. Let's not kid ourselves. They're up against Sheffield United, who will be looking to capitalise on potentially cancelling out between Burnley and Burnley and Sunderland. Because if they cancel each other out with a draw, 3 points would put Sheffield back into that automatic race. But I think at Bramwell Lane it's going to be a 2-2 draw here. I don't think it's going to be the easiest. Sheffield United have had a little wobble of late, and I don't know how long that wobble will last. West Bromwich Albion versus Stoke City. West Brom in 6th, Stoke all the way down in 19th. I'm just hoping Stoke loses for the sake of Derby. Purely selfish motivations, but I think West Brom will only get a point here. 1-1 draw, a lot of draws from West Brom this season. I think the most in the league at 13. Yeah, most in the league at 13. They're the draw merchants, West Brom. What can I say? Blackpool versus Huddersfield Town in an early kickoff in League One. Blackpool run by Steve Bruce. They're in 16th. They've drawn the last 3 games, and this will probably be another draw, although because they are at home against a good informed team in Huddersfield. But yeah, a 2-2 draw here. Quite an end-to-end game, quite an equal game. I think quite a good game from neutral as well. Peterborough United versus Leyton Orient. Leyton Orient in the league have won the last 5 games. Yeah, so I think 4 points outside the playoffs, there is a very real chance we could see Leyton Orient out of absolutely nowhere reach the playoffs. They're up against Peterborough at London Road. Peterborough are just above relegation zone in 19th by 5 points, so they'll be wanting something here, scrapping for everything. A 1-1 draw, which probably doesn't go in favour of Leyton Orient, but Leyton Orient are probably the smaller club. I'm just saying at the moment. Northampton Town versus Lincoln City. Lincoln City in 12th. That will probably take that come the end of the season. They are up against the Northampton Town team in 18th, which 6 points clear relegation zone. I don't think that's quite. But I think it's probably just about enough. But we're wanting something here at home at Sixfields, 2-2 draw, which will extend the unbeaten run of Northampton at 2-4 games, although they would have only had 3 draws in that. Birmingham City versus Exeter City. Birmingham City flying high, top of the league, 53 points. Thank you very much. Exeter, I don't think can overcome any of that in 15th. It's such a strong team, Birmingham at home. 3-0 win for the Blues, fairly routine at St Andrews. Bolton Wanderers versus Cambridge United. As I said, Bolton have been so inconsistent this season. They're in 10th. I think their inconsistency will continue as they do beat Cambridge United, who have lost the last 5 games on the bounce. I'm going to go 2-0 Bolton Wanderers. Bristol Rovers versus Barnsley. 5 points clear, Bristol Rovers, but they are only in 20th. So that is not the easiest. They are at home, but at home to a strong Barnsley team who've won the last 4 games in a row in the league. In 5th. Barnsley, I think, will good money to be in the playoffs coming into the season. 1-1 draw here, though. I think Bristol Rovers will grind them down. Crawley Town versus Burton Albion. Now, let's not take a mick here. 21st to 24th. This is a huge game in relegation picture. If Burton do win this, they will get themselves up to 22nd, which I know it doesn't seem a lot, but that climbs over 2 teams and suddenly makes themselves have that self-belief that maybe they can do it. But they're away from home and they're up against Crawley. And Crawley will be thinking exactly the same thing, because if they get 3 points here and if other teams around them drop points, they can be only, if the good results go their way, only 2 points off safety. So yeah, I think Crawley here will be fairly dominant. 3-0 to Crawley Town. Mansfield Town versus Wycombe Wanderers. Mansfield in 9th, 4 points off the playoffs. I don't think they're a team which can be written off lightly. They are up against Wycombe, though. Difficult game. Second place, Wycombe. But yeah, I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw here. Cheeky draw between the two of them. Not great for Wycombe, but Mansfield will continue being a decent team. Reading versus Stockport County, 6th versus 7th. I think Stockport has slightly gone off the boil from their early season exploits, which saw them in the proper playoffs in 4th or 5th. Reading, I think, at the moment are a good informed team. And I think at home they'll win this one. 1-0 to Reading. I think it'll be quite a close, even game. Rotherham United versus Charlton Athletic. Talk about inconsistent. You've got Rotherham United, who are in 13th. Rightfully so. Are they mid-table team? They are, I think, of the most mid-table team this season. They have scored 24, conceded 24, won 8, drawn 7, lost 9. Very equal team. And I think Charlton Athletic will notch up another loss to that. Although Charlton Athletic are in 11th, not much more consistency. They are also unbeaten in like the last 6 games. So yeah, I think 1-0 to the Addicts. Stevenage versus Wigan Athletic. Yeah, this is 14th versus 17th. And to be fair, Stevenage are the higher ranked of the 2 teams. And I think Stevenage could win this one feasibly. They seem to be doing all right at this level of football. 1-0 to Stevenage at the Lamex Stadium. Carlisle United versus Bradford City in the League 2, which one of these teams is on the cusp of the playoffs. Bradford in 8th, 2 points off the playoffs themselves, up against a team facing very much doomed to non-league. Carlisle United, bottom of league, 18 points. 7 points from safety. It's a difficult ask, a tall order. But at Brunton Park, I reckon they could win this one. I'm going to go with a shock, and I keep on doing this. And every week I end up looking myself like an awful fool. But 3-1 to Carlisle here. I think they'll take it. Gillingham versus Doncaster Rovers. 14th place Gillingham versus 7th place Doncaster Rovers. 10 points separating the two, but Gillingham need to stop the rot, essentially, if they want to turn this ship. I'm going to go with a 2-all draw at Priestfield. I don't know if that'll be enough to stop the rot, but I certainly think it's a plausible outcome if the Doncaster will not be wanting that result in the slightest. Accrington Stanley versus Notts County. I don't think Accrington Stanley were an absolute disgrace versus Liverpool. I thought they were trying to be defensive and just proved a bit too much of a tall order. They're at home versus Notts County at the Wham Stadium. Notts County in 6th. They certainly look good for their money at the moment. But I think Accrington Stanley at home, you can't wipe it out. They're in 19th, won the last 2. They'll be wanting to make sure they don't get dragged into a proper drawn-out relegation battle. 2-all draw here for Accrington Stanley. Yeah. AFC Wimbledon versus Tranmere Rovers. Tranmere Rovers in 22nd. They're a team which look like they're most likely to fall into the trapdoor of relegation if things do not go their way. And they're up against a difficult opponent in AFC Wimbledon, who are in 5th. I think AFC Wimbledon will probably be fairly dominant here. I'm sorry, but they'll be wanting to get into that automatic playoffs. They're going to be ruthless. 4-1 to the Dons at Plough Lane. Bromley v Colchester United. 12th place Bromley versus Colchester in 17th. And though I've been impressed by Bromley this season, I've seen them a couple of times on the TV. They've definitely got themselves in a position where they look comfortable, at this level. And up against Colchester, a seasoned League Two team. They've been at League Two for years and years now. Colchester United, though, I think will win this one 4-0. I'm going to go a bit of a shock result. I think that's a bit of a go to grain. But I think at the same time, it wouldn't actually surprise me. Grimsby Town versus Chesterfield. Grimsby, the most blowy, wind-blustered stadium between that and Fleetwood. They are 2 absolutely horrendous stadiums to play football. It's 9th v 10th. If Grimsby win this, they need a healthy goal scoring, but potentially could get in the playoffs. Chesterfield just below them. 3 points separating the two. Chesterfield have lost the last 3 games, and I reckon they might lose this one. 1-0 to Grimsby. It'd be an ugly win for the Mariners, but you take them whatever, right? Morecambe versus Crewe Alexandra. Crewe in 2nd. I don't think this will be too much an obstacle for them. They're up against Morecambe, who are in 23rd in relegation form. 1-0 to Crewe Alexandra. Oh, I think that's being generous to Morecambe there, but I think they have kept games fairly tight this season, Morecambe. They've just not managed to score enough. They've only conceded 22 goals, which I don't actually think is too bad. They're only scoring 14 is probably... No, sorry, they've only scored 22 goals. Conceded 39. My bad, I've been reading the wrong columns. Yeah, I don't think that's great. It's not the worst, but there are worse teams in defence. But Port Vale versus Newport County. Newport in 18th, lost the last 3 games. No FA Cup exploits this year either. Up against Port Vale at home. I don't think Port Vale have impressed me lately. They've dipped off since that hype they had at the start of the season. 2-1 Newport County. I know Newport are just one of them weird teams, though, isn't it? A grind wins out of what seems absolutely nothing. Salford City versus Fleetwood Town. Yeah, I know Salford are absolutely flying in the league, having won so many games on the bounce. I think they've not lost since like the new year in the league. Yeah, they're at home at the Peninsula Stadium up against Fleetwood. But I've just got a sneaky suspicion that 8-0 hammering by Man City will have knocked the confidence. And I know it's only that everyone expected them to lose, but to lose so heavily, it did feel a bit disgraced in a sense. you could tell that they could have just. Although I don't think any of the goals were necessarily the defense's fault. They just. No one likes conceding 8, do they? Like being on an absolute drumming. So I think Fleetwood will win this one 4-0 because I think they'll be a bit shell shocked at Salford. Swindon Town versus Barrow. Barrow in 15th, Swindon in 20th. Barrow mid-table, that'll be well there. And Swindon in a bit of a relegation trouble themselves. I think Swindon will be wanting to get something from this game. It's a huge opportunity, but I think Barrow will win 3-0 to Barrow. I don't think anyone's going to be particularly surprised about that score prediction. Walsall versus MK Dons. MK Dons in 11th, Walsall top of the league. But I do think MK Dons will be able to get something from here. We've got to remember the quality that team does have on paper. I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw, a well-grinded out point for the team MK. Braintree Town versus Solihull Moors. This game, for me, is very much a formality. It is. I think you look at Solihull Moors, have just been so good this season. You look at Braintree, they've been the opposite. I know they've not been the worst team in the league, but they definitely feel like, for me, a team that's going down. Although they're not in relegation zone yet. 3-0 for Solihull Moors. Fairly comfortable win for the West Midlands team. Eastleigh versus Aldernsham. You got 12th versus 11th. Nothing much separation from this team. They're on the same amount of points. I think home advantage will seal this 2-1 to Eastleigh. Forest Green Rovers versus Rochdale. Rochdale will not be wanting this game because Forest Green Rovers are probably one of the favourites, if not the favourites, for the title this season. And travelling over to that ground, you just know it's. Even though Rochdale are great, don't think it's going to be good enough. 2-1 to Forest Green Rovers. FC Halifax Town versus Dagenham and Redbridge. Halifax, edge of playoffs, as already mentioned, versus Dagenham and Redbridge, who I don't think were awful in the FA Cup last night. I know they lost 3-0 against Millwall, but I don't think there's any discredit in that. But yeah, a 0-0 draw here. Back to basics with Dagenham and Redbridge, back to their normal midfield self, as opposed to the ridiculous lunacy of the National League Instagram suggesting that they could reach the playoffs sometime soon. I don't think that's going to happen. Oldham Athletic versus Aldershot Town. I think we're all going to easily predict Oldham to win this one. I'm sorry, Aldershot, you're going to be absolutely whipping boys today. 5-1 for Oldham Athletic. They're at home as well, Oldham. I think it's Boundary Park or something like that. Absolutely scenes will be going off for the Greater Manchester club. They are certainly a team which I wouldn't yet rule out being a team that could reach the title. I know at the moment they are a solid 7 points behind. And they've got a game, but they've got a game in hand on York City. We've got 2 games in hand of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place teams. So if they got 6 points from them 2 games, that instantly puts them then actually in a credible position. Because they've only 4 points gap, like not sorry 4 points gap. That puts them in a credible position because that will push them up to 3rd place. If they win both their games in hands against, I can't remember who they're up against, but you get what I'm trying to say. You know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. They just need to keep on winning games. Another team who needs to keep on winning games is Barnet, because they have started to draw them of late, and that is suffering promotion hopes. But I think they'll be back to winning ways here against Southend, although it's at Roots Hall. I do think they'll win. 2-0 for Barnet. Fairly self-explanatory. Tamworth versus Boston. Huge respect. Hats off to Tamworth for doing such an amazing job against a really strong Spurs team as well. It wasn't a weak one, I wouldn't say. And I'm going to go with them to continue getting a 0-0 draw in normal time. And we're going to get a 0-0 draw against Boston here. And I think Boston will take that. I think on top of the point that they got last week, if they get a win and a point here, you could actually see a fair uptick in turn of form, which pushes them potentially into getting survival. I mean, a 3-point separation if the games go their way. I don't think it's... Boston just needs stuff to fall their way. They need to get a rhythm. Wealdstone versus Hartlepool United. Wealdstone in 19th, Hartlepool in 10th. You'd probably go for me to back Hartlepool, but I'm actually going to go with a 4-all draw here. Wealdstone at home, and I think Hartlepool could be a bit sloppy in defence in this game. I'm not saying in general, but yeah. Woking versus Ebbsfleet United. Woking in 17th, Ebbsfleet United in 24th. You'd have to say Woking are heavy favourites coming into this one. But I think Ebbsfleet will grind something out. 1-all draw, another draw for Ebbsfleet. It's just not enough, to be honest with you. That's it. They just can't win games. They've only won one game all season. York City versus Sutton United. Sutton in 13th. Yeah, I think York will be wanting to be favourites here to try and win this one. But I think it'll be another draw. A 2-all draw here. I think that would be a bit disappointing for York. But it is Sutton, and Sutton got a good team. They were in the Football League last season, let's just not forget. Maidenhead United versus Fylde. This would present an excellent opportunity for either of these teams able to get out of a relegation zone. This is a huge 6 pointers, 20 versus 22nd, 23 points versus 22 points. As I said before, only goal difference is preventing either Braintree or Wealdstone from getting into the relegation zone. And this is a huge game. I'm going to go with a 2-all draw. I do think they'll cancel each other out. But if we add my last prediction, that'll be 4 points in the last 2 games for Maidenhead. And for Braintree, well, they'll have nothing to show for it. As I've already alluded to this video as well. So Maidenhead United, I fully expect to get out of a relegation zone by the end of this week. Buxton versus Peterborough Sports. As I said, Buxton were at home and they're up against Peterborough Sports. I do think it's just a bit too much for Buxton to get back into the playoffs. And over in 8th and only a point off. But it's just something I just feel like Buxton can't continue this amazing form. I wish they could, but I don't see it. I'm going with a 2-all draw at Silverlands. Peterborough are just going to... It's just an annoying team. That's the thing. Chester versus Alfreton Town. I think Alfreton Town will want to get back to winning ways if they lose to Brackley. And having lost 3 on a bounce. And Chester doesn't provide an easy opportunity to do that, but I think they will win it. Alfreton 2, Chester 0. Chorley v Scunthorpe United. The shock of the season, I think, was Scunthorpe United losing in the last game that they've had against Rushall Olympic. Like, what is going on, Scunthorpe? Up against Chorley at Chorley's home. I think Chorley will get something here. Chorley will get something for the glory. 1-all draw here, which dents Scunthorpe even further. Curzon Ashton versus Brackley Town. We've been impressed by Curzon Ashton this season, haven't we? I don't think anyone quite saw it coming. Even Curzon Ashton fans who are probably having a whale of a time at the moment. They're up against Brackley Town. 5 points separating the two, but at Curzon Ashton's home. 2-0 for the Tameside outfit. Or I think they're in Borough Tameside, I can't remember. Hereford versus Southport. Hereford, I think we were impressed with quite a bit this season to be in 10th, only 2 points off the playoffs. It's not a discredit. But Southport, cheeky Southport, will take some points here. 1-0 to Southport. Kidderminster Harriers versus Warrington Town. Warrington in 19th, Kidderminster Harriers in 4th. Warrington might actually win this. I'm going to 2-1 Warrington. I just have a feeling, though, because they need the points more, Warrington will get them. Kings Lynn Town versus Marine, fairly obvious. Kings Lynn are going to win this one. Marine, I am sorry. But, I mean, they are only 3 points off safety. Let's not forget that. Um, I mean, Radcliffe, Marine, and Russell are on 21, and Warrington and Farsley on 24. So they could do it, Marine, but against Kings Lynn is a huge ask. 3-1 to the Linnets. Leamington versus Darlington, and we know that Darlington have just managed to get into the playoffs, and that sort of caught us all off a bit guard, I imagine. Same with Salford in League Two. But I think, again, Leamington will get some points. I think they are a bit of a surprise bundle in this league. 2-1 to the Breakers. Needham Market versus Radcliffe. Now, this is a game which is interesting. The bottom place Needham Market in 24th versus Radcliffe in 21st. If Radcliffe win this, and other games go their way, which I don't think they will actually, but if they did win this and the games go their way, they could get to safety. Needham Market, I think we'll also be looking at it though. They're at home. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. Not quite enough for Radcliffe. But winning and drawing the last 2 games, that is something to build on, isn't it? A bit of form, maybe. South Shields versus Oxford City. Oxford City in 18th. South Shields in 12th. 3 points off the playoffs. I think South Shields can't be quite wiped out from this conversation. 4-1 though to South Shields. Spennymoor Town versus Rushall Olympic. Although Spennymoor have won the last 3 games, being really quite impressed actually to manage to string out results. They are up against a long trek to Spennymoor, and Spennymoor's a very tight ground, very old-fashioned non-league ground, you could say. I think Spennymoor will win this one 3-0 to the Moors. On for National League South, got Chelmsford City versus Hornchurch. A bit of a mid-table clash. I think that's fair reflection to say. Chelmsford City in 14th, Hornchurch in 15th. You don't get much more mid-table than Hornchurch at the moment, who have won 8, drawn 8, and lost 8. That is the same as Chelmsford. One of them triple 8 is going to be, well, both of them triple 8 will be broken come the end of this week of football. We're going to go with a 4-1 win to Hornchurch. Can't really explain why. I just got more of a feeling towards Hornchurch this time that they're going to dominate. Chesham United versus Maidstone United. Chesham in 12th. Again, for a new team in the C block. Don't think that's too bad. It's going to be difficult against Maidstone, who have won the last cajillion games, it seems like. 2-0 for Maidstone United, which if Torquay drop points in their game, means Maidstone will go top of the league, and I think it's deserved. I do think Maidstone absolutely deserve to win the league after how good they were last season and how good they've been this season after the early shock. Chippenham Town versus Salisbury in a Wiltshire derby, which I don't think people talk about anywhere near as enough. 16th place Chippenham versus Salisbury in 20th. There is a bit of gulf between these two teams. There is a solid 6 points. I think Salisbury, though, will be wanting this one a bit more. 3-2 to Salisbury. I just feel like local derby days, you can never quite tell. Dorking Wanderers versus Weston-super-Mare. If this was a few weeks ago, I think Weston-super-Mare, maybe sort of just before the festive period, I think Weston-super-Mare would have maybe given Dorking a run for its money, but not anymore. They've had a horrendous festivities period. Not so much a Merry Christmas if you are that Somerset fan. Dorking Wanderers, I think, will win this one. 1-0 Dorking Wanderers. Enfield Town versus Bath City. If Enfield want to stay up this season, this is a game that they need to win. They're up against Bath City, who are in 17th. And I think they will do it. I think Enfield will win 1-0. I think there's maybe a bit too much of a mountain to climb to end up in safety. But every win, if you grab some momentum come the end of the season, then you can certainly turn your form right round in this league. You can never say never. Farnborough versus Hemel Hempstead Town. Hemel Hempstead in 18th. I think it's fairly obvious that Farnborough in 10th are going to win this. Although they've had a bid for only 1 point in the last 4 games, they are still only 6 points off the playoffs. And if they get back to winning ways, which the opposition of the Tudors does provide a very apt opportunity to do so, they will be right back in it. 2-1 to Farnborough here at home. Hampton Richmond Borough versus Tonbridge Angels. I think Hampton Richmond Borough will get a draw here. They've had a lot of draws of late, and maybe another one here today. Well, on Saturday, sorry. 0-0 for Hampton Richmond Borough. The Beavers versus the Angels. Slough Town versus Eastbourne Borough. Slough Town, I think at one point looked like they'll reach the playoffs. Not anymore. Not after their dreadful run of form that they have had of late. I don't think the Rebels will be looking much better. But Eastbourne, they could probably maybe put a bit of a thorn in the side of. We're going to have a 1-0 draw of this game. I think Eastbourne will slowly be deflating in terms of how many rude missed opportunities they've had of late to win games. St Albans City versus Torquay United. I think it's too obvious Torquay will be winning this. I'm sorry. But St Albans in 21st, you're not providing much of an opportunity to the current top of the league. 1-0 for Torquay United. Truro City versus Aveley. I actually going a bit rogue here, and I think even though Truro are definitely within the title race, I think any teams from Truro in 5th to the Torquay on top of the league are within a title race. There's only 4 points separating all these teams. So yeah, I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw here. A missed opportunity, I think, for Truro to capitalise into getting into a title or race position. Welling United versus Boreham Wood. I think everyone's fairly comfortable that Boreham Wood will win this one. I think we're in unison there. Welling in 19th, Boreham Wood in 3rd. Boreham Wood have been an amazing team since, I don't know, at least October. They have gone from strength to strength. 3-0 to Boreham Wood. Worthing versus Weymouth. Worthing in 7th. They've also a team on a good hot streak of form up against Weymouth, which I think the less can be said about them this season, the better. Bottom of the league, only won twice. Drawn 9 times. That's a fair few amount of draws, but 14 losses. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be a Weymouth fan anyway, considering how poor they've been over the last few seasons. It's not a great club. You don't want to be supporting a team constantly in a relegation battle. 2-0 for Worthing. Yeah. Everton versus Tottenham Hotspur. Again, I think Moyes could turn this ship around. I'm going with a 2-2 draw here up against Tottenham. It would be a very feasible thing I could see happening for Spurs to bottle this. Manchester United, I'm going to go with losing against Brighton. Brighton are a decent team, and if they convert some of their draws to wins, will do well. So if I predicted that Manchester United only pick 1 point up over the 2 games they've got this week, that could certainly see them ending up in a relegation battle. 3-1 to Brighton. I'm doing it. I'm going to have to predict Nottingham Forest to beat Southampton. I think it's only fair. Southampton have been utter shite this season. They say for kids anyway, so it's fine. Nottingham Forest in 3rd. I'm not actually legal about Nottingham Forest. 4-3 for Nottingham Forest. I hope they lose. I really do. Ipswich Town versus Manchester City. Man City going to whip them this one. 4-1 for Man City. Well, boys, Man City's are back. Yay. They're relatively easy games, though, aren't they? Leeds United versus Sheffield Wednesday in a Yorkshire derby. Apparently this is on ITV, which is a bit odd. But yeah, 0-0. I think for a Yorkshire derby, Sheffield Wednesday will put on an extra good display. And they have been good of late. So yeah, I think I've got all the championship teams at the top end to drop points. And Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Chelsea. I think Chelsea will slip up in this one. I actually do. They've not been great in the last 4 games. Yeah, I'm going with Wolves to win this one. 4-2 to Wolverhampton Wanderers. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. The top, what is it? The top 50 left clubs, no, players, sorry, for Derby County will be coming up uh, this Friday. Let's say Friday. Um, sorry, it's got really, really dark. I'm nowhere near my light to be able to like turn it on. Uh, but yeah, please do subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.